Hello, everyone, and welcome. Have you ever felt like fear is holding you back? Or that you always find some excuse, some reason why you haven't started that project you've been dreaming of? Do you look at other successful people and think, that's just not for me? If you answered yes to any of that, then this video is for you. Today, we're going to talk about an absolute gem of a book that has sold millions of copies since 1959 and continues to change lives today. That book is The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the core ideas of this book. I'll show you how your thinking is the thermostat that controls your success, how to cure what the author calls Excusitis, the failure disease of making excuses, and most importantly, how to build real, unshakable confidence through action, not just words. Stay with me. Introduction: The Enduring Appeal and Psychological Framework of Thinking Big. Overview and Enduring Legacy. Published in 1959, The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz, Ph.D., stands as a foundational text in the self-help and personal development genres. Decades after its initial release, it continues to exert a profound influence on generations of readers, particularly those in fields of leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. The book's central and unwavering premise is that the scale of an individual's success, be it in finances, happiness, or personal satisfaction, is directly proportional to the scale of their thinking. It argues that to achieve great things, one must first cultivate the habit of thinking great thoughts. Context framing. The book was written during the golden age of post-war American industrial society, a period characterized by a focus on sales, corporate advancement, and production. This historical context is evident in some of its language and illustrative anecdotes, such as the aspirational goal of moving from a crummy apartment to a fine new suburban home. While this backdrop might make some aspects of the book appear dated to a contemporary audience, a deeper analysis reveals that its core psychological principles are remarkably timeless, transcending the specific era in which they were conceived. The fundamental human challenges of self-doubt, fear, and procrastination are as relevant today as they were in the mid-20th century.
Report objective. This report aims to provide an exhaustive analysis, a mulkes kamal, or complete summary, that moves beyond a superficial overview of the magic of thinking big. It will dissect the psychological mechanisms that underpin Schwartz's philosophy, translate his principles into a clear framework of actionable strategies, and offer a balanced critical evaluation for the modern reader. By bridging the gap between motivational wisdom and established principles of behavioral science, this document seeks to equip the ambitious individual with a nuanced understanding of how to apply the magic of thinking big in a contemporary context. Part 1. The Foundational Pillars of Schwartz's Philosophy. Section 1. The Thermostat of Success, the Psychology of Belief. The central thesis: believe you can succeed and you will. The cornerstone of David J. Schwartz's entire philosophy is the principle that belief is the thermostat that regulates what we accomplish in life. The book posits that significant success is not primarily a function of superior intellect, innate talent, or advantageous circumstances, but rather the result of a deliberately cultivated habit of believing in one's capacity for achievement. This is the fundamental premise upon which all other strategies in the book are built. Schwartz argues that when an individual genuinely and deeply believes "I can do it," a remarkable psychological process is initiated. The "how to do it" begins to develop. This form of belief is not passive wishful thinking, a common pitfall that the author is careful to distinguish. Instead, it is an active, dynamic, "I am positive I can" attitude that generates the necessary power, skill, and mental energy required to take action and overcome obstacles. Conversely, disbelief is presented as a potent negative force. When the mind doubts, it actively seeks out and attracts reasons to support that disbelief, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. This process demonstrates that belief is not merely a passive emotional state, but a powerful cognitive catalyst. It initiates a causal chain that drives success. The sequence begins with the internal act of cultivating belief. This belief then activates the mind's problem-solving faculties, causing the how to do it to emerge. This newfound clarity and purpose projects an aura of confidence that inspires trust and support from others, creating a positive social feedback loop. This external validation, in turn, reinforces the initial belief, motivating the individual to take decisive action. This action, rooted in a well-founded plan and social support, is what ultimately leads to success. The magic described by Schwartz is not a supernatural force, but the powerful, emergent property of this self-reinforcing system of cognition, social perception, and behavior working in concert. This makes the initial, internal task of mindset management the single most critical step in the entire process of achievement. The thought factory metaphor, Mr. Triumph versus Mr. Defeat. To make this abstract concept of belief management tangible, Schwartz introduces a powerful and memorable metaphor, the mind as a thought factory. This factory's production is overseen by two foremen, Mr. Triumph, who specializes in producing positive, success-oriented thoughts, and Mr. Defeat, who manufactures negative, failure-oriented thoughts. These foremen are obedient. They produce whichever type of thought they are assigned. The critical insight here is that the individual is the manager of this factory. By consciously choosing which foreman to give more work, that is, which thoughts to focus on, one can control the factory's output. Giving more assignments to Mr. Triumph strengthens him, making positive thinking the default mode of operation. Conversely, consistently feeding work to Mr. Defeat makes him dominant, leading to a pervasive mindset of pessimism and failure. Thinking, "I will win," conditions the mind to create plans that produce success, while thinking, "I will lose," conditions it to devise plans that lead to failure. The practical application of this metaphor is to consciously and deliberately deposit only positive thoughts into one's memory bank, effectively starving Mr. Defeat of work and empowering Mr. Triumph. Psychological parallels: self-efficacy and cognitive reframing. Though written before many modern psychological theories were widely popularized, Schwartz's framework remarkably prefigures several key concepts in behavioral science. His principle of belief is a direct precursor to psychologist Albert Bandura's highly influential theory of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is defined as an individual's belief in their own capacity to execute the behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. Schwartz's assertion that believing a solution paves the way to solution perfectly mirrors the extensive research showing that individuals with high self-efficacy are more likely to take on challenges, exert greater effort, and persist longer in the face of setbacks. Furthermore, the management of the thought factory is a practical early application of what is now known as cognitive restructuring or cognitive reframing, a core technique in cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT operates on the principle that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected, and that by changing negative thought patterns, we can change our emotional states and behavioral outcomes. The process of consciously identifying the work of Mr. Defeat and replacing it with thoughts from Mr. Triumph is precisely the goal of cognitive restructuring, to challenge and replace maladaptive automatic thoughts with more balanced, constructive, and reality-based ones.
Section 2. Curing Excusitis, a cognitive behavioral approach to self-imposed limitations. Excusitis as the failure disease.
Schwartz coins the term excusitis to describe what he calls the failure disease, the habit of making excuses to justify inaction and mediocrity. He observes a clear inverse correlation between success and the tendency to make excuses. Highly successful people, he notes, are far less inclined to rationalize their shortcomings. In contrast, individuals with mediocre accomplishments tend to possess a book full of reasons to explain why they haven't, why they can't, and why they aren't achieving their goals. This habit, according to Schwartz, is a primary barrier to thinking big and realizing one's potential. The danger of excusitis lies in its self-perpetuating nature. Excuses are not merely static justifications for past failures. They are active, self-reinforcing beliefs that shape future behavior. Schwartz astutely observes that when people first begin making an excuse, they often know it is a rationalization or a lie. However, through sheer repetition, the excuse begins to harden into a deeply held conviction. This process represents a form of cognitive hardening or self-hypnosis. Once the belief is solidified, for example, "I'm just not smart enough," it activates the Mr. Defeat foreman, who then diligently seeks out evidence to confirm this belief, a well-documented cognitive bias known as confirmation bias. The individual then begins to avoid challenges that might disprove this newly formed belief, further cementing the excuse as a core part of their identity. The excuse has thus transitioned from a simple defense mechanism into a powerful, self-imposed limitation. This is why curing excusitis is so critical. It is not merely about breaking a bad habit, but about performing a psychological intervention to halt a destructive feedback loop before it becomes an unchangeable element of one's self-concept. The four major types of excusitis and their cures. Schwartz identifies four common forms of this disease and prescribes a specific vaccination or cure for each, framing them as conquerable mindsets rather than unchangeable realities. Health excusitis involves using real or imagined health issues as a reason for not pursuing goals. People who suffer from this often complain about their ailments, using them as a shield against taking on new responsibilities or challenges. The prescribed cure is threefold. Refuse to talk or worry excessively about your health, as this only makes it seem worse. Cultivate gratitude for the health you currently possess, and adopt the mindset that it's better to wear out than rust out, embracing activity over passivity. Intellectual excusitis. This is the belief that one lacks the necessary intelligence or brains to succeed. It often involves underestimating one's own intelligence while overestimating that of others. The cure is to recognize that one's attitude and ability to think constructively are far more important than raw intelligence or the ability to memorize facts. Schwartz emphasizes that stickability accounts for 95% of ability. The recommendation is to concentrate on one's assets and unique talents rather than perceived intellectual deficits. Age excusitis is the excuse of being either too old or too young to start something new or pursue a major goal. The cure is to reframe one's perspective on age. Instead of seeing it as a limitation, view it positively. Schwartz advises individuals to calculate their remaining productive time and to commit to investing that time in what they truly want to accomplish, realizing that a significant portion of one's best years often lies ahead. Luck excusitis involves attributing failures to bad luck and successes of others to good luck. This mindset absolves the individual of personal responsibility. The cure is to fully accept the law of cause and effect. Good luck, Schwartz argues, is not a random occurrence, but the predictable result of preparation, planning, and success-producing thinking.
A key difference between the successful and the mediocre is that the successful person learns and profits from setbacks, while the mediocre person fails to learn from them and continues to blame external forces. Psychological analysis. Excuses as cognitive distortions. From a modern psychological perspective, Schwartz's concept of excusitis is a practical description of common cognitive distortions. These are irrational or exaggerated thought patterns that can lead to negative emotional and behavioral outcomes. Health excusitis can be seen as a form of catastrophizing, where one focuses on the worst possible health outcomes and magnifies their significance. Intellectual excusitis often involves disqualifying the positive, ignoring one's own strengths and assets, and mind reading, assuming one knows that others are more intelligent without evidence. Age excusitis is a form of black and white thinking, where age is seen as an absolute barrier rather than a variable factor. Luck excusitis is a clear example of an external locus of control, where an individual attributes outcomes to outside forces rather than their own actions. Schwartz's cures are in essence cognitive and behavioral interventions designed to challenge these specific distortions. By refusing to dwell on health issues, focusing on assets, reframing age, and accepting cause and effect, an individual actively works to shift from an external to an internal locus of control, taking ownership of their actions and outcomes. Section 3. The antidote to fear. An action-based framework for building confidence. The doctrine, action cures fear. Schwartz identifies fear of failure, of embarrassment, of other people, as a primary inhibitor of success and a major obstacle to thinking big. His core prescription for this universal ailment is remarkably simple, direct, and powerful. Action cures fear. He argues that fear is not a static state, but a dynamic one that is fed and fertilized by indecision, postponement, and inaction. The longer one waits to confront a feared situation, the larger and more intimidating the fear becomes in the mind. The proposed method for applying this cure is a straightforward two-step procedure. Isolate your fear. Pinpoint with precision what you are actually afraid of. Vague, undefined fears are paralyzing. By giving the fear a specific name and form, it becomes a manageable problem rather than an overwhelming feeling. Take constructive action. Once the fear is defined, take some form of direct, relevant action to address it. There is always some action, no matter how small, that can be taken for any kind of fear. This framework subtly reframes the nature of confidence. In many self-help paradigms, confidence is presented as a prerequisite for taking action. People often believe they must first feel confident before they can tackle a challenge. Schwartz identifies this as a fundamental and paralyzing error. His philosophy demonstrates that confidence is not a feeling to be waited for, but rather the consequence of action. The sequence is not confidence, then action, but fear, then action taken despite the fear, then diminished fear, then acquired confidence. This is a liberating realization, as it means the power to begin is always within one's grasp, regardless of the current emotional state. The first step is mechanical, not emotional. One does not need to wait for the spirit to move them. They can take action, and in doing so, move the spirit themselves.
Practical confidence-building exercises. Behavioral activation. To support this doctrine, Schwartz provides a suite of practical behavioral exercises. These are not just arbitrary suggestions. They are based on the principle that you can influence your internal emotional state by adopting the external behaviors of the person you want to become. Sit in the front row. In meetings, classrooms, or conferences, consciously choose to sit near the front. This is an act that signals to yourself and others that you are engaged and confident, combating the tendency to hide in the back. Practice making eye contact. Looking people directly in the eye communicates honesty, conviction, and confidence. Avoiding eye contact signals insecurity. Walk 25% faster. Schwartz observes that people lacking confidence often have a slow, shuffling walk. Adopting a brisker, more purposeful pace can change your self-perception and how others see you. Speak up. Make it a habit to volunteer a comment or ask a question in group discussions. This breaks the silence of passivity and builds the habit of engagement. Smile big. A genuine, broad smile not only makes you feel better, but also disarms others and projects warmth and confidence. These actions create a powerful positive feedback loop. The physical act sends a signal of confidence to your own brain, which in turn begins to foster a genuine feeling of confidence. Simultaneously, these behaviors project an image of importance and self-assurance to others, causing them to treat you with more respect, which further reinforces your growing self-belief. Psychological analysis, exposure therapy, and embodied cognition. Schwartz's approach to fear and confidence aligns perfectly with well-established psychological principles. The core doctrine of action cures fear is a direct practical application of exposure therapy, a cornerstone of treatment for anxiety disorders. Exposure therapy involves gradually and repeatedly confronting feared objects or situations in a safe environment. Through this process, the individual learns that their feared outcomes are often exaggerated or unlikely to occur, and the physiological and psychological response of fear diminishes over time, a process known as habituation. Schwartz's two-step method, isolate the fear and take action, is a simplified, self-administered form of this therapeutic technique. The specific confidence-building exercises, such as walking faster and sitting in the front, are powerful examples of embodied cognition. This is the theory that the mind is not the only source of cognitive processes. Rather, the body and its interactions with the environment play a central role in shaping thought and emotion. By adopting the physical posture, gait, and actions of a confident person, an individual can actually induce the corresponding mental and emotional state of confidence. The body's feedback to the brain helps to shape the feeling. Part 2. The Toolkit for Thinking Big, Actionable Strategies and Mindsets. Section 4. Architecting the Mind, the Power of Vocabulary, Vision, and Value. The Big Thinker's Vocabulary. Essential tenet of Schwartz's methodology is that our thoughts are not abstract concepts, but are processed by the mind in the form of images or mental movies. The words we use, both in our internal self-talk and our external communication, are the script for these movies. Consequently, cultivating a big thinker's vocabulary is not a matter of semantics, but a crucial strategy for programming the mind for success. This concept reveals language as a powerful reality construction tool. By consciously selecting our words, we are not merely describing our world, we are actively constructing our perceived reality and influencing the reality of those around us. This process works because words trigger mental images, and these images dictate our emotional state and our perception of what is possible. By controlling our language, we gain significant control over our internal psychological landscape. When we use positive, expansive language with others, we are effectively painting a positive mental picture for them, shaping their perception of a situation and making them more receptive to our plans and ideas. This transforms communication from a simple exchange of information into a strategic tool for leadership, motivation, and self-management. Every word becomes an opportunity to either build a bigger, more resourceful reality or to reinforce a smaller, more limited one.
The actionable strategy is to consciously curate one's vocabulary. Use positive, expansive words. Deliberately use big, bright, cheerful words that promise victory, hope, and happiness. For instance, when asked how you are, responding with "I feel wonderful" creates a more powerful internal and external effect than a passive "I'm okay." Frame plans positively. When presenting plans or ideas, use language that conveys opportunity and excitement. "This is an exciting opportunity" is more moving than "the numbers look positive." Speak favorably of others. Make it a habit to use positive and encouraging words when describing other people. Compliment them on their achievements, appearance, or actions. This not only builds goodwill, but also reinforces a positive worldview. Eliminate negative vocabulary. Actively purge defeatist words and phrases from your vocabulary. Words like impossible, I can't, it won't work, and it's hopeless should be systematically replaced with constructive alternatives, like let's find a way, how can we make this work, or let's look at this from a new angle. Stretching your vision, seeing what can be. A defining characteristic of a big thinker is the ability to see beyond the immediate reality and visualize a greater potential. This means looking at things not merely as they are, but as they can be. This is the practice of adding value through imagination. Schwartz uses the powerful analogy of a bricklayer. A small thinker sees himself as just laying bricks, while a big thinker sees himself as building a magnificent cathedral. This visionary capacity is not for idle daydreaming. It is the engine of creative problem-solving and innovation. When you believe something can be improved or transformed, your mind begins to search for ways to make that vision a reality. This involves asking expansive questions like, how can we double the value of this asset? Or how can we increase our customers' average spend tenfold? This mental habit of seeing potential where others see only the status quo is what separates the innovator from the functionary. The strategy of adding value. This visionary thinking must be translated into a proactive habit of adding value in 3 key domains. To things, this involves looking for ways to improve products, services, or systems. To people, this means helping colleagues, subordinates, and family members to be more effective, successful, and happy. To yourself, this is the commitment to continuous self-improvement, asking daily what you have done to make yourself more valuable. This mindset fundamentally shifts one's focus from "what can I get" to "what can I give?" Schwartz argues that this service-oriented approach is the most reliable path to long-term success and financial rewards.
Section 5. Managing your inner and outer worlds, environment and attitude. Schwartz's philosophy posits that success is not achieved in isolation, but as an ecological phenomenon, a product of a carefully cultivated personal ecosystem. This ecosystem has 2 primary components that exist in a constant feedback loop: the external environment and one's internal attitudes. A positive attitude helps attract a positive environment, and a positive environment reinforces and sustains a positive attitude. This creates a virtuous cycle of growth. Therefore, personal development cannot be a purely internal affair. It requires the active, strategic management of one's social and informational inputs. Go first class, curating a supportive environment. The mind, according to Schwartz, is a product of its mind food, the environment that nourishes it. This environment includes the people with whom we associate, the information and media we consume, and our physical surroundings. The opinions and attitudes of those around us are particularly potent. The negativity of mediocre naysayers can act as a thought poison that stifles ambition. The actionable strategy is to become a ruthless curator of your environment, ensuring that it works for you, not against you. Go first class. This principle applies to all aspects of life. It means choosing quality over quantity, whether in clothing, friendships, or personal standards. Dressing well, for example, is presented as a tool for lifting one's spirits and building confidence, because it sends a signal of self-respect to oneself and to others. Surround yourself with positive people. Actively seek out and associate with positive, ambitious, and success-oriented individuals. Join professional groups and social organizations where you can build relationships with people who will encourage and support your growth. Choose your advisors wisely.
Get advice from people who have achieved the success you desire. Successful people are often surprisingly humble and willing to share their knowledge. Avoid taking counsel from negative or mediocre people whose advice will only reinforce limitations. Avoid thought poison. Make a conscious effort to disengage from gossip, complaining, and cynical conversations. These negative inputs contaminate your mental environment and drain your energy. Making your attitudes your allies. While the external environment is crucial, the internal environment of one's attitudes is equally, if not more, important. Having the right attitudes maximizes one's abilities and inevitably leads to better results. Schwartz highlights 3 specific attitudes that must be cultivated to become allies in the pursuit of success. The I'm activated attitude. This is the attitude of enthusiasm. Schwartz argues that enthusiasm is contagious and is a prerequisite for activating others. To get others excited about a plan or project, you must first be enthusiastic yourself. This attitude can be cultivated through several practices. Dig deeper. When you find something uninteresting, make an effort to learn more about it. Knowledge often precedes enthusiasm. Life it up. Infuse your actions with vitality. This can be as simple as offering a firm handshake, smiling with your eyes, or speaking with energy and passion. Broadcast good news. Make it a habit to share positive stories and good news with your family, friends, and colleagues. This practice shifts focus away from problems and creates a positive atmosphere. The "you are important" attitude. This attitude is rooted in the fundamental human desire for significance. Everyone wants to feel important. When you make other people feel important, they are more willing to support you and do more for you. This is not a technique of manipulation, but a genuine practice of appreciation. Key actions include giving sincere praise, remembering and using people's names, and sharing credit for successes rather than hogging the glory. The service-first attitude. This is the principle of focusing on giving value rather than on what you can receive. Schwartz advises to put service first and watch money take care of itself. The goal should always be to give people more than they expect to get. This approach builds trust, loyalty, and a reputation for excellence, which are the long-term drivers of financial and personal success.
Section 6. The Social Dynamics of Success. Building Alliances and Influence. Becoming lighter to lift. A recurring theme throughout the book is that success is not a solo endeavor. It is fundamentally dependent on the support of other people. Schwartz presents a compelling visual metaphor for career advancement. Individuals are not pulled up to higher-level positions by their superiors, but rather they are lifted there by the support of their colleagues and subordinates. Therefore, to advance, one must be lighter to lift. This means being likable, cooperative, and a person others genuinely want to see succeed. Likability is not just a pleasant trait, it is a strategic asset that often outweighs technical skill in promotion decisions. The actionable strategy for becoming lighter to lift involves proactive relationship building. Take the initiative in building friendships. Leaders do not wait for others to approach them, they actively seek to build connections. This includes introducing yourself to new people at every opportunity and making sure they remember your name. Practice conversation generosity. This is perhaps the most powerful and simple technique for winning friends. It involves encouraging others to talk about themselves, their interests, and their experiences. By being a good listener, you not only learn valuable information, but also make the other person feel important and valued, which is the surest way to earn their goodwill. Accept human differences. A key to getting along with others is to accept that people are different and have a right to be so. Avoid the trap of being a reformer who tries to fix others. This approach only creates resentment. Instead, focus on finding qualities to like and admire in everyone. Thinking like a leader. Leadership, in Schwartz's view, is not a title or a position, but a way of thinking that anyone can learn and apply. This leadership thinking is fundamentally based on a strategy of applied empathy. The core principle, trade minds, is not simply about being considerate, it is the primary strategic tool for influence. By understanding another person's perspective, their desires, problems, and motivations, a leader can frame their own goals in a way that resonates with the other person's self-interest. This creates willing allies and enthusiastic partners, which is far more effective and sustainable than a command and control approach. True influence is not power over people, but power with people, achieved by aligning mutual interests. This makes empathy the ultimate power tool for a leader. Schwartz outlines 4 rules for developing this leadership mindset. Trade minds with the people you want to influence. Before acting, ask yourself, if I were in their position, how would I react to this? This practice of seeing things through their eyes is the secret to effective influence and motivation. Think, what is the human way to handle this? In every situation, especially difficult ones, prioritize treating people with dignity and respect. Putting people first builds loyalty and trust. Think progress, believe in progress, push for progress. A leader is always forward-looking. They are not content with the status quo. This applies to their work, their community, and their own personal development. They are boosters, not complainers. Take time out to confer with yourself. Great leaders throughout history have used solitude to think, plan, and tap into their supreme thinking power. Schwartz advises setting aside dedicated time for quiet contemplation, free from distractions, to solve problems and generate creative ideas. The following table provides a consolidated reference guide, distilling the book's core philosophy into a practical checklist for daily implementation. It translates abstract principles into concrete, actionable steps, serving as a high-utility tool for anyone seeking to practice the habits of a big thinker. Core principle, key actionable strategies. Believe you can succeed. Think success, not failure. Remind yourself you are better than you think. Believe big. Cure excusitis. Refuse to talk about or worry about health. Focus on your assets, not just intelligence. View your age positively and calculate remaining productive time. Accept the law of cause and effect and stop blaming luck. Build confidence and destroy fear. Take action to cure fear. Deposit only positive thoughts in your memory bank. Sit in the front row, make eye contact, walk 25% faster, smile big. Think and dream creatively. Believe it can be done. Be receptive to new ideas. Be experimental. Ask, how can I do better? And how can I do more? Practice asking and listening. Manage your environment. Go first class in all things. Circulate in new, positive groups. Get advice from successful people. Avoid gossip and negative people. Make your attitudes your allies. Cultivate enthusiasm. In parentheses, I'm activated. Make others feel important. Adopt a service-first attitude. Think right toward people. Be lighter to lift, that is, likable. Take initiative in building friendships. Practice conversation generosity. Get the action habit. Be an activationist. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Think in terms of now. Turn defeat into victory. Study setbacks to learn from them. Be your own constructive critic. Blend persistence with experimentation. Use goals to grow. Create a clear 10-year plan for work, home, and social life. Achieve goals one step at a time. Invest in yourself.
Part 3. From Thought to Reality. Implementation and Critical Evaluation. Section 7. The Engine of Achievement. Integrating Goals and the Action Habit. While the preceding sections focus on cultivating the correct mindset, Schwartz makes it unequivocally clear that thought alone is insufficient. The magic only happens when big thinking is coupled with decisive and consistent action. This section synthesizes the book's principles for execution, forming the engine that translates internal belief into external reality. The action habit. Becoming an activationist. The book champions a strong bias toward action. Ideas, no matter how brilliant or grand, are worthless until they are acted upon. Schwartz uses the term activationist to describe a person who gets things done, a doer rather than just a talker. An activationist embodies the do-it-now mentality. They understand that waiting for the perfect conditions is a recipe for permanent procrastination because conditions are never perfect. They do not wait for inspiration or for the spirit to move them. They take mechanical action, which in turn generates momentum and inspiration. This principle directly links back to the cure for fear. Action is the universal solvent for both fear and procrastination. Turning defeat into victory. An essential part of the action habit is resilience in the face of setbacks. Schwartz acknowledges that anyone who takes significant action will inevitably encounter failure and defeat. However, he argues that defeat is ultimately a state of mind, not a permanent condition. The most successful people are not those who never fail, but those who learn from their failures and use them as stepping stones to victory. The actionable strategy for turning defeat into victory involves a constructive, analytical approach to failure. Study setbacks. Instead of dwelling on the pain of a loss, analyze it objectively to understand what went wrong. Every failure contains a valuable lesson. Be your own constructive critic. Have the courage to identify your own faults, weaknesses, and mistakes. Correcting them is what makes you a professional. Stop blaming luck. Take full responsibility for the outcome. Blaming external factors prevents learning and growth. Blend persistence with experimentation. Persistence alone is not enough if you are repeating a failing strategy. You must combine unwavering persistence toward your goal with a willingness to experiment with new approaches. Using goals to grow. Action without direction is inefficient. Goals are what provide that direction, harnessing the raw power of desire and focusing it toward a specific end. Without clear goals, individuals tend to drift, reacting to circumstances rather than shaping them. Schwartz advocates for a structured approach to goal setting, starting with a long-term vision. He recommends creating a clear, written, 10-year plan that encompasses the three major areas of life: work, income, responsibility, prestige; home, standard of living, family life; and social, friendships, community involvement. This grand vision serves as a long-term autopilot, providing motivation and direction. However, progress is made one step at a time. To make the 10-year plan manageable, it should be broken down into smaller 30-day goals. This approach creates a clear roadmap, allows for regular progress checks, and builds momentum through a series of small, achievable accomplishments. Ultimately, the most important investment one can make is in oneself, and goals are the primary mechanism for facilitating that growth. Section 8. A critical reappraisal. The magic in a modern, nuanced context. While the magic of thinking big offers a powerful and enduring framework for personal motivation, a responsible analysis requires a critical appraisal of its limitations, especially when viewed through a contemporary lens. Acknowledging the dated context. The book is undeniably a product of its time, 1950s corporate America. The language is frequently gendered, using he, man, and fellow as universal pronouns, and the examples are heavily skewed towards a world of salesmen, executives, and traditional family structures. For a modern, diverse audience, this presentation can feel exclusionary and dated.
However, it is possible to look past this surface-level language and recognize the timelessness of the underlying psychological principles. The very aspects that make the book feel dated, its directness, its simple language, and its reliance on anecdotes rather than complex data, are also the source of its enduring power and accessibility. In an age of self-help literature, often saturated with dense scientific jargon and convoluted frameworks, Schwartz's work reads like straightforward advice from a wise and trusted mentor. This simplicity makes its core ideas incredibly sticky and easy to recall. For example, action cures fear, or Excusitis. While a modern academic might lament the lack of cited empirical evidence, the average reader often finds the story-based approach more relatable and motivating. The book's magic, therefore, lies in its psychological accessibility. It bypasses intellectual complexity to deliver powerful behavior-changing heuristics. Its lack of modern scientific rigor is, for its intended audience, a feature, not just a bug. The risk of toxic positivity. A significant modern critique that can be leveled against philosophies like Schwartz's is their potential to veer into toxic positivity. This is the belief that one must maintain a positive mindset at all times, which can lead to the unhealthy suppression and invalidation of authentic negative emotions. Schwartz's advice to deposit only positive thoughts and refuse to recall unpleasant events could be misinterpreted as a directive to deny or feel ashamed of legitimate feelings like grief, anger, or sadness. This is a valid concern. A healthy psychological approach involves acknowledging and processing negative emotions, not repressing them, as repressed feelings can manifest in other harmful ways. A nuanced application of Schwartz's principles would therefore involve using positive thinking not to deny reality, but to prevent oneself from being overwhelmed by it. It means acknowledging negative feelings without allowing them to dominate one's entire mindset and dictate one's actions. The goal is not to eliminate negative emotions, which is impossible and undesirable, but to ensure they do not become the sole drivers of behavior. Overlooking systemic barriers. The book's intense focus on individual mindset, "you are what you think," is both its greatest strength and its most significant limitation. By placing the locus of control entirely within the individual, it provides a powerful sense of agency. However, this perspective can inadvertently promote a blame-the-victim mentality, suggesting that any lack of success is purely a personal failure of thinking. This individualistic framework largely overlooks the very real systemic and structural barriers that can profoundly impact an individual's life trajectory. Factors such as socioeconomic background, systemic discrimination based on race or gender, and unequal access to education and resources are not addressed. A modern reader must therefore apply Schwartz's principles with the understanding that mindset is a powerful tool for navigating one's circumstances, but it operates within a complex and often inequitable external reality. Belief versus skill and strategy. Finally, while Schwartz correctly identifies belief as the essential starting point, a critical reader might argue that the book can sometimes understate the non-negotiable importance of competence. Belief without skill is delusion. The how to do it does not magically appear from belief alone. It emerges from a combination of belief-driven motivation and the hard work of acquiring skills, developing strategies, and managing resources. Thinking big is most effective when it is paired with working smart and learning hard. The belief provides the fuel, but skill and strategy provide the engine and the roadmap. Conclusion: synthesizing the magic for lasting impact. Summary of timeless principles. The magic of thinking big has endured for over 60 years because its core message taps into fundamental truths about human psychology and motivation. Its most potent and evergreen principles can be summarized as follows. The catalytic power of belief. The size of your belief system acts as a thermostat, setting the upper limit of your achievements. Genuine belief is not passive hope, but an active force that unlocks the mind's problem-solving capabilities. The primacy of action. Action is the antidote to fear and the engine of confidence. One does not need to wait for a feeling of confidence to begin. One must begin in.
So, the key takeaway from the magic of thinking big is clear. The real magic isn't some supernatural force. The real magic is inside of you. It's in the way you think. The ability to achieve great things begins with your decision to think big. Don't let fear, excuses, or other people's opinions limit your potential. Start today. Apply just one principle we talked about and watch the difference it makes in your life. And my question for you today is, what is the biggest excuse you've been using that you're ready to let go of after watching this video? Let me know your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please hit that like button so I know. And make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all a big and successful life. See you in the next one.